Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's No Filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, does intermittent fasting destroy muscle gains? It's a good question because I've had quite a few questions in the past with regards to intermittent fasting. And as I've talked about, I'm a firm believer that intermittent fasting is a very healthy diet to follow, especially if you're going through cancer treatments, chemotherapy, radiation, okay, stem cell. The advantages to going through intermittent fasting is that it puts the body in what we call an alkaline state. So cancer can't survive in an alkaline state. So with that being said, intermittent fasting can really help someone who is going through these types of treatments. However, if the goal or if your goal is to build muscle and lose fat, it's not an ideal nutritional plan to follow. Why? Well, in order to put on muscle, your body needs to be in what we call an anabolic state. Okay. In order to be in an anabolic state, you have to be feeding your body continuously, okay, the proper nutrients, lean proteins, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats. If you're depriving your body of that for 18 to 20 hours, which is a true intermittent fasted period, you're not going to be in an anabolic state. You're going to be in what we call a catabolic state, okay, where you're burning muscle. So it's not an ideal nutritional plan to follow if the goal is to add on solid lean muscle and lose stubborn body fat. The nutritional plan that you want to follow in this case would be a diet that's going to consist of smaller, more frequent meals that's going to contain lots of lean protein and a moderate amount of complex carbohydrates and healthy fats. Okay. So you want to be fueling your body continuously. But just remember, I'm not here saying that intermittent fasting is bad. On the contrary, I'm actually saying intermittent fasting is excellent. And I have worked with a few clients who have gone through cancer treatments and were prescribed an intermittent fasted diet, either through myself or through a dietitian, nutritionist, and it has worked really well because, as I said, it helps put the body in an alkaline state. Okay. So is it a healthy diet? Absolutely. Is it a diet that I would recommend following if the goal is to transform your physique? No. Okay. For those reasons. So it's not that you're going to lose a bunch of muscle if you're intermittent fasting. It's just going to be very difficult to add on muscle. Okay. Because you do want to be feeding your body every 3 to 4 hours, and you do want to make sure that your body's getting enough nutrients. Okay. Because if you put your body into that starvation mode, it will start burning fat, it will start burning muscle, and it will also be taking out water. Okay, so yes, you will lose some fat, but you're going to lose muscle and water at the same time. So it's not an ideal diet plan to follow. Okay, my recommendation: follow a 5 to 6 meal plan, small meals throughout the day, more frequent meals, eat every 3 to 4 hours. Make sure that you're having, like I said, lots of lean protein and a moderate amount of complex carbohydrates and healthy fats. Okay. Nick, is it true you can't spot reduce fat? Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely true. Unfortunately, you can't choose your genetics. You don't get to choose your parents, your grandparents. Your genetics are your genetics. Some people put on fat faster in their lower body. Some people put on fat faster in their midsection. Some people take off fat faster in their face when they're dieting. Everyone's different. And the reason why everyone's different is because we're all made up of fat cells, and our fat cells are distributed differently throughout our bodies. Right. So you'll notice with a lot of women, when they tend to put on weight, women tend to put on weight more in the lower half, whereas men, we typically put on weight in the midsection and lower back. You don't see many guys carrying much body fat in their glutes and quadriceps and hamstrings. Whereas women, when they put on weight, that's a troubled spot, or I should say troubled spots for women, right? So for men, it's our abdominal region, right? We get that gut, the love handles, the lower back, okay? Because our fat cells are distributed throughout that area for men and throughout that area for women. Now, of course, there are exceptions to the rules. There are some women that will put on weight in their midsection, lower back, and there are some guys out there who do put weight on in their glutes and hamstrings and quads. It does happen. But across the board, when you're looking at individuals, you can really see where they put on fat first and where they lose fat first. And I can tell you from working with, oh God, hundreds of people over the last 20 years, whenever I put someone on a nutritional plan, I've talked about this in the past. So I put two people on the same nutritional plan, which I rarely do, but let's say I put them on the exact same nutritional plan. One person will lose fat in the lower half faster than the other. The other person might lose fat in their face faster. But at the end of the day, they both will lose. If the goal is to lose body fat, they both will lose body fat and they'll both get to that end result as long as they're following the nutritional plan that I've laid out for them. But they will lose fat in different areas of their bodies. Okay. And so I've seen this time and time again where I have worked with people and even on different nutritional plans. It's just that if I put them in a caloric deficit, of course they're going to lose weight, right? If they're doing a cardio, they're doing a training, of course they're going to lose weight. But some people will lose weight faster in their butt and their thighs, and other people will lose weight faster in their midsection, lower back. As long as you stay focused and on the plan, though, you will lose the fat from where you really want to lose it from. So if you're someone who says, I've got cellulite in my thighs and, no matter what I do, I can't get rid of it, you have to stay focused. You have to stay on track because chances are you're going to lose the fat fastest in the midsection, fastest in the lower back, maybe your triceps, maybe your face. But when there's no more fat to lose from these areas, guess what? It's going to go to those stubborn areas, which in this person's case might be their thighs, where the cellulite is. Okay. So the trick is to stay focused and stay on track and stay consistent with your diet and training. Okay. And don't think that, I'll never lose fat from this area. It's impossible. It's not impossible. It's just that your body is stubborn in different areas. Okay. So you just have to stay on track. I promise you it will come off. But this is where I see a lot of people get discouraged is they don't see transformation in the areas of their body where they want to see transformation. They say, I'm losing weight in my midsection, but my butt's big. It's got a lot of fat. I've got cellulite. But if you keep doing what you're doing, eventually that fat will disappear. Okay. But you have to stay on it. You can't get frustrated. You can't give up and you can't go try something new. You have to stay with what's working. Okay. And I talk to this with clients all the time. I'm like, we're losing 2, 3 pounds a week. Everything's working. No, it's not coming off from the area that you want it to come off from. But as long as we continue to do what we're doing, it's eventually going to come from that area because it can't come from anywhere else. If you've got no more fat in your face, no more fat in your triceps, no more fat in your midsection, where is it going to come from? Your butt, your thighs. Okay. Same thing with the guys. If you start losing weight in your butt and your thighs and you start losing weight, let's say in your chest and in your arms, but I'm like, man, I still got my gut. I'm like, keep going. You're going to lose that fat from that area eventually, but you have to stay consistent. Okay. You can't stop and you can't break the consistency because as soon as you break that consistency, you hit that plateau and you're not going to see the results you want to see. All right. Okay. Nick, is the anabolic window real or more fitness bro fiction? Uh, you know, the anabolic window, in my opinion, it's something that the supplement companies made up years ago. Okay. And it was to sell their post-workout shakes. It was to sell their protein bars. And I really believe that the reason they put that out there was because protein shakes are convenient. Protein bars are convenient. They're both full of crap. I mean, unless you're getting a good whey isolate protein powder and just mixing it with water or maybe almond milk, but not without these smoothies that they add a whole bunch of sugar to. No, it's all crap. So I feel like they made up this whole anabolic window that you have to get some protein in right after your workout or else you're going to lose muscle. Not true. Okay. There are plenty of times where I'll do a workout. Say I work out at 9 o'clock in the morning and I won't get my post-workout meal until maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I don't lose any muscle. Okay. The body doesn't work like that. Now, if I go for 7 hours, maybe 10 hours, 12 hours, like the intermittent fasting, then yeah, I'm most likely going to lose muscle because now my body's searching for something to feed my muscle bellies, right? Get that protein synthesis in. If it's not getting that protein synthesis in, you're not going to gain muscle. You probably won't lose muscle, but you're not going to gain muscle. Okay. So my recommendation is when you do your workout, try to at least get some form of lean protein, complex carbohydrate, and healthy fat meal in within a 3 to possibly 5 hour window. Okay. So it doesn't have to be immediately after you leave the gym. Okay. It doesn't. I promise you that. I really think that was something that was just inspired by the supplement industry and then the bros in the gym just like kept regurgitating the same crap over and over again. And then it gets on social media and it spreads like wildfire. And there really is no scientific data backing these claims, zero. So my recommendation is as long as you're making sure that you're getting in the nutrients, at least in that 3 to 5 hour window after your workout, you should be fine. And a good post-workout meal, in my opinion, shouldn't just consist of one macronutrient. So you shouldn't just be having a protein shake. You should be having protein, complex carbohydrates, and healthy fats. Okay. All three. Pre-workout, protein, complex carbs. Or if you work out really early in the morning, if you prefer training fasted, that's fine in my opinion. But if you're someone who trains later in the afternoon or in the evening, my recommendation is to have at least one or two meals just so that you have enough glycogen in your receptors so that you're able to lift heavier and that you're able to last longer in the gym. Okay. Okay, Nick, are women who lift doomed to look bulky? My girlfriend doesn't want to lift weights because she's afraid she's going to get that bulky look. I haven't had this question in a while. So, in my experience, women who lift weights don't get bulky unless they're the ones that are using the anabolic steroids. Those are the women that you see get that bulky look, the bodybuilders, right? They get the deep voice, they get the facial hair. Unfortunately, those are the women that kind of give it a bad image or kind of give a bad image to the sport, right? Because there's a lot of women who don't want to look like that. And I totally get that. I mean, I personally don't find that look attractive myself. But I can tell you from working with hundreds of women over the years who are all natural lifters, not a single one of them look bulky. Okay. They're toned. And I hate using that word, but I have to use it here because to get the message across that for women, as long as you're lifting weights in that 10 to 15 rep range, not doing that 1 to 3 reps, as long as you're not injecting your butt with a needle or taking an oral steroid like Anavar or Winstrol, you're not going to get that bulky look. It's not going to happen. Your body just naturally does not have enough testosterone in it to produce the amount of muscle mass that a man can produce, right? Now, of course, there are exceptions to this rule as well. Okay. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. You might get what we call a genetic freak out there who a woman could put on some muscle, but and could put on, sorry, every woman can put on muscle, but can put on large amounts of muscle and get that bulky look. But again, that's that person's genetics. And in my experience, those women are very far and few between. Okay, I haven't seen that many women like that over the years that just built that amount of muscle mass naturally, but they are out there, yes. But I would say 9 out of 10 women are not going to get that. Absolutely not. Okay, so you're going to get that lean, dense muscle look that looks good, that tone look, if you will, but it does look good. Okay. And so I think it's a big mistake for women who don't lift weights because they're afraid that they're going to get that bulky look. And they stick to things like Pilates, yoga, cardio classes. But at the end of the day, when you're doing all that, you're not going to sculpt a physique. You're going to be lean, but you're not going to have any muscle belly. You're not going to have any muscle definition. So you're going to have like that flat butt. You're not going to have a lifted butt, right? You're not going to have those leaned arms. You might have a little bit of those bingo arms, right? Because you need to firm that area. And in order to firm that area, you need to use resistance. And I'm not talking resistance that you lift those 5, 8 pound dumbbells. You need to lift weight. Okay. So serious weight that you can get that 10 to 15 rep range. It works. I promise you. So no, women who lift weights will not get bulky unless, of course, you are using anabolic steroids. And if you are doing that 1 to 3 rep range, I can see that adding on kind of like that big muscle. It's not going to look good. So that's why I recommend keeping your reps between 10 to 15 because then you're training for hypertrophy and you're going to kind of sculpt those muscles. Okay. And you're not just going to get big muscles. All right. Okay. Nick, are home workouts a waste of time? No, I wouldn't say they're a waste of time. Look, if you're moving, it's better than not moving, right? So if you can run rather than walk, that's better. If you can walk rather than sit, that's better. So if you can train at home rather than just sit on your ass at home and do nothing, absolutely. For me personally, I don't want anything that resembles the gym in my house. There's nothing in my house that reminds me of the gym. I have no dumbbells here, no kettlebells, no gym mats, nothing. I don't want that because I don't find my home to be a motivating place to work out, nor do I want it to be a motivating place to work out. This is my sanctuary. I don't want anything that reminds me of the gym here. Okay. For other people, though, they like working out at home. They're like, oh, it's convenient for me. I can set up I might have an extra room that I can do it in, get a few pairs dumbbells, maybe some barbells and some kettlebells, and I can do it. Great. But you have to make sure that you're well equipped because there's a lot of people who have these home gyms and they have one set of dumbbells. They're like 5 pounds. They have a random kettlebell that's either too heavy or way too light to lift. So they're not equipping their gyms properly. So if you're going to train at home, you want to make sure that you have enough equipment. Okay. So yes, you want to have dumbbells and you want to have dumbbells, in my opinion, that go from anywhere from 5 to 25 to 30 pounds, depending on how much you lift, right? Same thing. You want to make sure that you have at least one or two, a barbell, an easy bar. You want to have some gym mats. Ideally, you want to have a bench. And then you want to have one of those retractable benches because with a retractable bench, you can do so much. You could do flat presses, you could do incline presses, you could do low incline presses, you could do 90-degree presses for your shoulders. So there's all kinds of movements you can do with a retractable bench. Okay. Swiss ball, these things are all, in my opinion, necessary in order to get a good workout. So you absolutely can get a good workout at home, but you just have to make sure that your home gym is well equipped. For me personally, like when I used to train people at their home gyms, in their apartment building gyms here in downtown, I noticed a lot of the machines would just be those life fitness machines, which are terrible, absolutely terrible, because even the planes and ranges of motion, they just, in my opinion, it's a one size fits all. You can't really adjust them. And so if you're super tall or even super short, it's very awkward. It puts a lot of stress on the joints, tendons, and ligaments. So I was always forced to stick with the free weights. Whereas if you're at a private gym like mine or a commercial gym, they have cables, pulleys that are a little bit more easier to maneuver and you can customize them for heights of different people. So, it's kind of like you're kind of capping yourself at what you have because most people can't put cables and pulleys in their home unless you have a big home or you have a big garage that you can use. Then yeah, of course you can do it, but most people can't. So you're missing out on the cables and the pulleys, which I also feel are necessary to have a good workout. But you can get a great workout in if you just have free weights, but you have to have free weights and you have to have free weights that will give you some resistance. Okay. So I know there's one of my clients just recently purchased those dumbbells that I think you can just adjust the weights while with one set of dumbbells. So they can go from anywhere from 3 pounds up to like 60 pounds just by adjusting the resistance on the actual dumbbell. So those are kind of cool. They're a little awkward to use because they're big, but they're really cool. So, for a space saver, those things are great. But can you get as good of a workout working out of a private facility like mine or a commercial gym? No, obviously not. But you can get a pretty decent workout working out at home. And if it's your only option, I say do it. Absolutely. All right. Okay. Nick, what's your opinion on places like Subway and Chipotle's? I'm sure they are healthier than McDonald's. Not necessarily. But can I include food from these places on my diet? It's just easier for me as they are both right outside my office. You know what's even easier? Prepping your food and bringing it to your office. I'm not sold on Subway being healthy. Processed meats, shitty bread. No. I was talking about this with one of my clients the other day about Subway, and they used to use that guy, what was his name, Jared, as their spokesperson. When I looked at someone like Jared, who I think is now in jail, but anyway, that's another story. But when I looked at someone like that, I never looked at that like, wow, that's a physique I want. No, I just looked at a dude that was fat and now was skinny, but didn't have any muscle definition whatsoever, nothing. So to me, I'm like, well, I don't want to look like that. That's what I'm not. I'm not aspiring to look like that. I was aspiring to look more like a Schwarzenegger or a Stallone. And so for me, I'm like, why the hell would I eat that food to look like that? You want to eat food that's going to fuel your body properly. Okay. So it's not just about the aesthetics, it's about how you're going to feel. Okay. So when I looked at someone like him, no, I didn't want to look like that. But I also, my body demands more than just going for walks, which he was doing in addition to having Subway, I think like twice or 3 times a day. I need to train. I need to lift weights. Subway sandwich is not going to help me perform in the gym. Okay. So I need food that's going to be lean protein sources, complex carbohydrates, not that shitty bread. I want stuff like quinoa, yams, sweet potatoes, brown rice, God, even white rice. Lean protein sources that are not processed. So a whole chicken breast, a whole turkey breast, a nice salmon fillet. I don't want to eat crappy vegetables, lettuce that's like been sitting in one of those heat warmers or under a heat lamp for like 2 or 3 days. So I'm not sold on Subway being healthy. I'm not sold on Chipotle's being healthy. I think the healthiest option is you make the damn food yourself. You know what you're putting into your meals and you know the ingredients you're using. You're not adding all these special sauces or all this chicken and stuff loaded with sodium. So I mean, if you're in a jam, sure, but don't kid yourself and think that it's healthier than McDonald's. Not necessarily. I think McDonald's even has some healthier options out there now. I don't go to McDonald's, but from what I hear, they have some healthier options now. Okay. Whenever I'm in a situation where I really can't prep my own meals, which is very rare because I bring my meals with me everywhere. But if ever I'm in that situation, I'll usually just go to Starbucks and get one of those egg bites. I mean, it's not ideal, but it is what it is. Sometimes I even have some oatmeal. I'll skip the nuts and just have the oatmeal. But I like my food better. I can make it taste better. and it's convenient. It takes no time to prep my meals. So when you say it's an easier option, I disagree. An easier option is prepping your damn meals ahead of time and bringing them with you to your office. Put them in a microwave at your work. If you don't have a microwave at work, heat them before you go to your work. You're going to have lukewarm food. That might not be ideal, but don't kid yourself and think that you're being healthy by eating at Subway or Chipotle's. And also, I don't know. I would fact check that if it's healthier than McDonald's. Like, well, obviously, it's probably healthier than a Big Mac, yes, or a quarter pounder. But I think McDonald's has some somewhat healthier options now. Um, but no, I don't fall into that marketing crap that Subway or Chipotle's is better. Absolutely not. Okay. Okay. A few more questions here. Nick, is creatine a miracle drug or is it just hype? Well, I wouldn't really consider creatine to be a drug. It's more of a supplement. Uh, and it's funny because creatine has been around for decades. And when I first started training, creatine had been around at that point for at least on the mainstream market anyway, for at least 15 years. And it was nothing special. I mean, in my opinion, it's the only over-the-counter supplement that actually works because what creatine does, it loads your muscle bellies up with water. Muscle is 80% water. So the more water you have in the muscle, the stronger you're going to feel. The stronger you feel, the more weight you lift. The more weight you lift, the more muscle you add on. So it works, right? The drawback with creatine, though, is because it retains that additional fluid, you're going to retain additional fluid. So you're going to have a very watery look to your physique. And this is why I stopped using creatine when I was 15, because I used it for about 3 months and I did notice my strength went up in the gym. But I also noticed that when I took my shirt off, I couldn't see my abs because I had water covering them. Like I was holding water. I wasn't holding fat, I was holding water. So I'm like, well, I don't like this look. I felt puffy. I didn't like the way my joints felt. I had a hard time moving around. I'm like, no, this is not for me. Took out the creatine. My strength went down a little bit, not much. Didn't lose any muscle. Did lose some size because I was losing water weight, but I didn't lose any muscle. I figured, well, this is not for me. So it's not a supplement that I advise people to take. And don't forget, too, if you're someone who consumes, let's say, red meat at least once or twice a week, or you're consuming a lot of greens, you're already getting creatine in your body naturally. Our body, in my opinion, does need some creatine, but you don't need additional creatine in the form of supplementation. The other problem I see with a lot of these creatine supplements on the market now is that they're also adding sugar to it. They're adding flavor. And in my opinion, if you're going to take creatine, just take basic creatine monohydrate, which is just a powder. And back when I was buying it, it used to be like, I'm not kidding you, like 15, 20 bucks for a big jug of it. Now I see it selling in the stores for 80 to $100. It's just creatine. There's nothing special about it. So I've had a few clients ask me about creatine lately, and I know why, because there's Instagram reels, there's TikTok reels all about creatine. It's nothing new. As I've talked about in the past, a lot of this stuff tends to regurgitate itself over the years, comes back into play again. Like the Atkins diet was turned into the keto diet, which is the same thing. It's just the keto diet is a healthier version of the Atkins diet. You had even the If It Fits Your Macros diet, which I went to battle with for numerous years and told people don't do this. That seems to be making a comeback. So I see a lot of these supplements come and go over the years. Tribulus, another one, which is supposed to elevate your natural testosterone. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. If you're a man and you have low testosterone, you should be going on TRT therapy, monitored by a doctor or physician. So I feel like all these supplements out there, I just don't feel they work. And I feel it's a waste of time and a waste of money to put all this time and energy into buying them and using them and just seeing that they don't do anything. Your best bet, stick to whole food sources. You want to get your creatine in naturally? Have red meat once or twice a week. Have tons of greens, spinach, broccoli, asparagus. There's lots of creatine in that stuff. Okay. Have lean cuts of meat. You're going to get your creatine in. You don't need to take it in powder form. So will creatine work? Yes. It will make you stronger in the gym. It will make you probably even appear a little bit bigger, but it's also going to make you retain additional fluid and give you that watery look. So in my opinion, I wouldn't take it. If you don't really care about holding water and looking like you're holding water, by all means, take it. All right. Nick, I've heard you talk about training smarter rather than harder and wanted to know what you actually mean by training smart and not just hard. I think that's what you're saying. Sorry, can't understand your last sentence of that. Okay. Um, so when I talk about training smarter rather than harder, it's like the analogy I use is if you're a guy, would you rather lift 1,000 pounds or look like you could lift 1,000 pounds? Me personally, I'd rather look like I could lift 1,000 pounds. When I squat, I've talked about how I squat 315. That's my max weight. I've been doing it for the last 15 years. I don't go higher than that. But my quads are striated. I can see definition in my hamstrings, my glutes. I don't need to go heavier than that. And I feel the muscle. My knees feel great. My hips feel fantastic. I have no problems in my lower body whatsoever. Except my little hernia right now, but that has nothing to do with squatting. So I feel good. And I know I can get great results from keeping that weight. And I also know that it's not an easy weight. I still have to focus. I still need to push through each and every rep because it is a heavy weight. Could I go heavier? Yeah, of course. But at what risk? Right. So again, it comes down to being smart in the gym and checking your ego at the door. I've never cared about the amount of weight I lift. There are numerous times that I'm in the gym training myself or with clients, and I'll notice that sometimes their strength or my strength has gone down. And that doesn't mean that you've lost muscle. That doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden like out of shape. What it simply means is that maybe you had a rough sleep, or maybe it was a workout the day before, the day before that, that's affecting today's workout. So there's numerous factors that can come into consideration as to why you might be weaker on one workout versus the previous workout that you had a week earlier working the same muscle groups. So even though on paper it's nice to think that you're always going to keep increasing your weight, that's not going to happen. And there's sometimes you go into the gym where you might not be able to squat. There's been times where I can't do walking lunges. There's been times I can't bench press. My shoulder's bothering me, but I listen. I don't just push through the pain. Because if you push through the pain and you don't listen to your body, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for injuries. And I've seen this time and time again with people who go into the gym and they're so stubborn, they pop two or three Advil and they just start bench pressing, even though they've had a rotator cuff injury that's been going on for the past 2 or 3 weeks. What I would just do in this case is say, okay, well, no barbell presses. Let me try some dumbbell presses. Oh no, this is still not working for me. I'm just going to stop training chest for the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to focus more on back movements because it hurts to push my shoulder this way, but I have no problem retracting my shoulder this way. So again, it's training intelligently. It's approaching each workout methodically. It's not just going into the gym and going, well, last week I squatted 315. So even though my knees hurting, my hips hurting, I'm going to squat 315 today. No, it's listening to your body, understanding that, hey, you know what? Maybe today I can't train shoulders and instead I'm going to train arms. Or maybe today I shouldn't be squatting, I shouldn't be lunging, but you know what? I can do some leg press, I can do some hack squat, and I can do some lying leg curls if I want to work my hamstrings. Maybe I can do some isolateral lunges. So it's listening to your body. Okay. So that's what I mean by training smarter and not harder, paying attention to what your body's telling you. In my experience, the people who get injured in the gym, I mean, there's always going to be freak accidents, of course, but the people who get injured in the gym are usually the ones who are not paying attention. And what I mean by that is they're doing a set, but their mind's not in the set. Their mind's somewhere else. They're focusing on whether there's a TV on in the gym or they're talking to their buddy, or maybe they're thinking about a work problem, a relationship problem, but they're not creating that mind to muscle connection. And those are the people, in my experience, who usually get injured. Okay. When I talk about my hernia, I didn't get my hernia in the gym. I got my hernia outside the gym. Knock on wood, I've actually never injured myself in the gym because when I'm in the gym, I'm paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm in a controlled environment. Outside, it's a little bit different. You walk off a curb, you slip, a car comes, you back off, or you trip, get injured, right? So the people I see who do get injured though are usually the ones that are not creating that mind to muscle connection during their sets, during their reps, and not really listening to what their body is telling them. Okay, so that's what I mean by training smarter and not harder. All right. Okay, last question. Nick, is meal timing actually an important thing, or is it just overhyped? Very overhyped. Meal timing is something that I've never paid attention to, and it's something that I tell every single client I work with is that meal timing is irrelevant. As long, let's say I put you on a 5 or 6 meal plan diet. As long as you get all 5 or 6 of those meals in a 24-hour window, you can have them whenever you want. I could care less. But this kind of goes back to the whole intermittent fasting question, the first question I had. If you wanted to have all 6 of those meals within a 3-hour window, you could. I mean, you're going to have some digestive issues for sure, because that's a lot of food going in a 3-hour window. But you do want to space them out. In my experience, this works best for most people, not just for gaining muscle and losing fat, but just for digestive reasons. So you don't feel bloated when you're walking around, or you don't feel constipated because you have too much food in your body. Okay. So it doesn't have to be every 3 hours. Okay. But what I find works well for most people is that, as I mentioned earlier, that 3 to 5 hour mark. So if you're having, let's say, 4 meals a day, which a lot of people, I mean, sometimes I do 4 meals a day only. I might space them out every 5 hours. I don't, it's not an exact science. Sometimes I'm feeling really hungry, so I might have 2 meals in a 3 hour span. I'm fine. So again, listen to your body, but don't fall victim to this rule. You have to eat every 3 hours and you have to have your post-workout shake and you have to have your pre-workout meal. You have to listen to your body. And your body will always give you feedback and say, that pre-workout meal I had, it's not working well for me. I've told you this in the past. I've said this on the Q&A. There's some people that, like for me, my pre-workout meal is usually oatmeal in the morning. I work with some people who can't digest oatmeal. I work with some people who are allergic to oatmeal. And I don't mean allergic, they're going to break out in hives. It's just that it doesn't work with their digestive tract. So they have a food allergy to it, so they don't eat it. But they can have Ezekiel bread, right? They can have cream of rice. So it's just paying attention to your body of what your body can have versus what it can't have. Because there's a lot of good foods, AKA superfoods out there that a lot of people can't tolerate. The amount of people that I work with that can't tolerate quinoa, it's unbelievable. And quinoa is known as a superfood. But just because it's known as a superfood doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. So you have to pay attention to the foods that work well for you and the foods that don't. Okay. But as far as meal timing, I don't really pay much attention to it. What I would be paying attention to, though, is when you have certain meals around certain events. So, for example, if you are someone who works out at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, if you notice that you have this great workout, and like, well, what do I do? And you go back and you retrace your steps, and like, oh, you know what? I had 6 ounces of chicken breast, I had a cup of white rice, and I had a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, and I felt great. My strength was good. Then I recommend you duplicate that formula over and over again until it stops working. So this is why I tell people, I'm like, if you find a pre-workout meal that works for you, stick with it. If you train better in a fasted state, stick with it. Don't create all these variables because as soon as you start creating all these variables, you're like, well, why do I have a shitty workout now? Right? It doesn't make sense. I had a good sleep. I feel hydrated, but oh, wait, yeah, no, I went to Chipotle's or Subway before my workout. No, that's why I feel like shit. Yeah. So when you find a formula that works, stick with it. Okay. And that's where the meal timing comes down because most people who train, and not everyone, but most people that train usually train at a consistent time slot. So if you're someone who trains at 6 a.m., there's a good chance you're usually training at 6 a.m. So if you know that you train better in a fasted state, but as soon as you're done your workout, you are hungry, which makes sense. If you've been trained fasted, you're going to be hungry within an hour. So make sure you have a meal ready to go. Right. Whereas if you're someone who trains in the afternoon at 1, maybe you feel better having 1 or 2 meals beforehand, and then you don't need to eat right away because you can go, as I mentioned in the other question, 3 to 5 hours without eating right away. So you can give yourself a little bit more flexibility. Okay. But don't stress yourself over meal timing. In my experience, it's completely irrelevant. I've worked with people for competitions where I always tell them mealtime is irrelevant. They've placed very well. I've worked with the general population where the goal was to lose fat and build muscle. Meal timing is irrelevant. They've transformed their physiques, myself included. So I feel that meal timing is, again, more bro science, and there's no factual evidence to suggest that it needs to be every 3 hours or you need to have a post-workout shake and you need to have a pre-workout meal. And no, do what works for your body. Listen to your body. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, June the 9th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly do appreciate all the support and feedback that I receive from each and every one of you. Thank you all again, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.